good morning, and good morning again. Certainly want to welcome you this morning to another broadcast, Real Talk coaching series. We're just delighted to be a part of your audience this morning. Come on in. Welcome to our Facebook Live family. Those of you who are joining us by way of Facebook Live, we say good morning to you. And we also want to say good morning to our YouTube family, those of you that are joining us by way of YouTube. What a delight it is to be here on today. We're just excited to be able to be found on the wake up list again on a Saturday morning. Absolutely. Thank you this morning for joining in. Let me just say, if you're joining us for the first time, we want to show you how you can continue to join us, or maybe you want to share this link with a friend. I am telling you, we got a 60 minutes for you today. You will certainly want to find someone to share this with. We're talking about if you've ever done any work in the church and you got hurt. Listen, it's a practical guide we're going to be talking about today. And I want you to stay tuned just for a few more moments. Let me get a little bit of housekeeping out of the way. Here's how you can join us on a Saturday morning. You can go to our YouTube handle. You see it right there. Also, you see our Facebook Live handle as well. We're just exotically ecstatic to be able to offer you a real talk broadcast this morning. Listen, and if you have other topics that you would like for us to dive deep into, I'm going to ask you to see that link at the bottom left. If you will send us a notification there, you're going to find that we listen. As a matter of fact, this series that we're on right now is a result of your engaging us as well. We want to also ask you this morning, if you will consider just sharing this with someone. There's a couple of quick things we'd like for you to do on our broadcast. We are asking you to consider, if you hear something you like this morning, just send us a thumbs up, amen, or heart or something. That allows us to know that we're on your road this morning. And then if you will say something, I see so many of you in the backdrop. If you'll just say good morning, it'll let us know that you checked in with us this morning. And then finally, there's a little share button at the bottom of your screen. You can actually be an evangelist this morning. Absolutely. And hit that share button and send this to one of your colleagues or friends around church hurt. Now, listen, this is how it works. Good morning, Sister Ethel, all the way in the Virginia area this morning. We're going to ask you to come on in this morning. Listen, this is one of those topics, I promise you, that it'll get on your road real fast, because whether you've been hurt in the church, or maybe you've been hurt in your family, maybe you've been hurt in the workspace, listen, whether you've been hurt in the community, I'm telling you, today is about a practical guide to deal and get beyond church hurt. Let me tell you, we're ready to get started this morning. We got a lot of resources that we promise, that not only do we have a conversation, but we also offer you resources so that you as a person can get involved. Good morning again to all of you. I am absolutely ready to get started. We've got a full series for you this morning. And so I'm going to ask that the PowerPoint, I've got a PowerPoint prepared for you today, and it's entitled Church Hurt. Yes, there it is right there. I'm already excited on a Saturday morning because I'm on somebody's road. Listen, somebody's had some devastation. You've been in this thing called church, trying to do the right thing, and then you've encountered this big topic called church hurt. Yes, we're going to put our weight on it the next couple of weeks, because I've been talking to people, I've been visiting people, I've even been counseling people as late as yesterday on a person who says, I'm done with the church. Let me tell you something right now. It is a big topic conversation. And I just want you to give us a chance to really dive into this conversation, and hopefully, with God's help, to give you some tools to help you to process this thing called church hurt. All right. And again, if we say something to bless you, just go ahead on and say good morning, Dr. Carol Montague Davis. Thank you for checking in with us this morning. Let's go ahead and get started to the next slide, please. All right. And so what you're going to find over the next couple of weeks is this big topic, No Hurt Like a Church Hurt series. Let me tell you, if I could slam a towel on the table, I'd get happy right there, because there are all kinds of hurts, as we know, that we can encounter. But I'm telling you right now, it is a big mind-boggling topic around the church hurt. It's a series we're going to be diving deep into. We've got some books for you as well. Listen, we've got some articles for you to read, and we even have some live examples of people who were willing to put their church hurt out there. Today is really about a practical guide for healing and moving beyond church hurt, because the reality is, it's one thing to acknowledge it, and that's what we're going to talk about. You can't tame it until you name it. Yes, there it is. That's the first nugget for somebody right there today, that the reality is, you got to bring it to the forefront. Put a tag on it so you can start dealing with it, because there are so many that we're speaking to who are going to view this broadcast even after today. And you will have to acknowledge one thing, and one thing for sure, that there are things that you have been trying to put a band-aid on. You're trying to shout over it. Oh, yes, I'm on your road early this morning. Some things you can't shout over. You have to name it before you can tame it. And the reality is, this is a guide that we're going to be giving you to help you to not only name it, but to claim it and get beyond it, and tame it too, for that matter. Church Hurt 101. That's what we're going to be dealing with today. Next slide, please. All right. So I want to introduce a new term, hopefully to someone. It is a big deal. It's called ecclesia exitus disease. Yes, it's a research term. Ecclesia, which is a church, it's a called out group of people. Exitus is a Latin term which means church dropout. Yes, I want to talk to somebody today. Maybe you not the one, but you have, as soon as you heard this term, someone popped in your mind, that there is someone that you know that has been in this thing called church, and they have experienced the ecclesia exitus disease. Yes, it's a term which simply means to drop out of church. Who is it that I'm talking to today that you would just be honest with yourself and say, Williams, I'm telling you right now, I don't know how you discovered it, and I didn't even know that there was a term for it. But yes, indeed, there is a term called ecclesia exitus disease, which simply means that there are tagged titles for the term dropping out of church. There it is right there. Somebody ought to get happy, because if you name it, you can certainly tame it. Next slide, please. And then perhaps you've experienced it firsthand. The decision to permanently withdraw from a congregation you had considered to be your church home. I'm talking good to somebody today. Have you ever, or maybe you have someone in mind, the moment you heard ecclesia exitus disease, you thought about someone who permanently decided, I'm done with these people. Not only these people, the infraction was so deep until you decided that you were not only going to be done with them, you were going to be done with church altogether. It is called ecclesia exodus disease. And so let's look at some of the symptoms. I always like to dive deep into these series, because not only do we want to tell you what to look for, we want to also tell you how to tame it as well. So some of the symptoms, although they are so many, here's just a few to be on the lookout for. Um, Sometimes the word um, unambiguous, that means it's clear. You can see it. For a person can fall into the category of pain. Usually, that's a good one because think about it. You're a part of a group, the ecclesia, and this group, because of some action or behavior, has inflicted pain. Who am I talking to today? You've been toting around this pain. You've been toting around this burden. And we come today to give you a practical guide for dealing with and getting beyond the church hurt. Oh, yes, oh, yes, oh, yes. This term pain comes and manifests itself in so many different ways. Am I talking good to anybody today that you were going good until you encountered this infraction, and now every time you think about it, here's this pain that comes to your mind, this little discomfort to your heart. And we're going to talk about that also, because when you're in those areas, we shared this with you once before, that there are enzymes that your body produce when you get frustrated, and you certainly want to be cognitive. Your mind should be aware that when you encounter this pain, you have to learn to tame it. And then not only that, watch this. Here comes disappointment. Is there anyone that I'm speaking with on today that says, you know what, Williams, I got involved. I come out of that lifestyle that I was living to get involved with a local church. I called them my church home, only to encounter disappointment. What I came looking for, I didn't find. Oh, am I talking good to anybody on today? I came to talk to somebody about church hurt, this term called ecclesia. Yes, Pastor Jonathan Stowe, good morning to you, my friend, as well. Thank you for joining. I'm talking today about church hurt. These are some symptoms. Number one, it causes pain and it manifests itself. Number two, it causes disappointment. You would be surprised if we took the thermometer and gave a gauge on the number of people that get up weekly to tune in via social media or either face to face, and they're in that space, but they're disappointed. Am I talking good to anyone today that you can go through the motions and still have pain and still have disappointment? And then thirdly, spiritual anomie. And listen to this in red. Spiritual anomie is a condition of instability resulting from a breakdown of standards and values, or from a lack of purpose or ideals. That is this notion that you're engaging a group of people with a level of instability around their standards and values. Can I talk good to somebody today that you're not alone? You're not in this by yourself. If you feel like you're engaging a group of people, the ecclesia, which is called the church, and there is this feeling of spiritual anomie, that there is a lack of standards and values and purpose around the group that you're calling your church home. I want to talk good to somebody today that lets you know that you're not in this by yourself. Next slide, please. Now, I want to tell you that there are some examples for you to consider today. That there are so many people under the my good friend Rich, good morning to you, all the way from New York, but he travels all over the world. God bless you today. I want to suggest to you today that here I went researching for people who would give me some examples on what they categorize as church hurt. Let's look at this one and try to unpack some of these examples. Here's a gentleman who says, It was caused when our pastor disagreed theologically, that means spiritually, um, with some of the things that they were going through, and they realized um, at that time, I think. Give me one second. They realized that this term theologically is a term that says your spiritual understanding. So this pastor says, this person says that them and their pastor did not agree on some spiritual concept with something that the person wrote in a book. Rather than confronting me personally, the practice he taught from the pulpit based on Matthew's 18, which you do need to know that Matthew 18 says that if you have an alt with your brother, you should first go to them and them alone. This is what the person is referencing in this particular quote. He, being the pastor, chose to avoid me and instead go public with his disenchantment. He did not do it by just bad mouthing me to a few of the faithful. He, pastor, wrote an entire book on the subject using me as his unknowing, voiceless foil. When I asked him why he had not contacted me first to discuss his concerns so that we could resolve them, healing in your church hurts or differences as mandated in Matthew's 18, his response was that if I had a problem, talking about the person quoting this particular article here, says if you had a problem with his approach, well, tough luck. Such shocked and wounded by the hypocrisy of his actions and his unwillingness to engage in further conversation regarding his actions, my family and I sought another church to call home. Can you imagine that the focal lens was about not coming one-on-one? Now, I don't defend or negate this. This is just an example of a person, when I did the research, who says this is my example of how I experience church hurt. All right. Next slide, please. Here's another example. This person says, in another instance, I was serving in a leadership capacity. This is a quote taken from a person in the subject of church hurt. In another instance, I was serving in a leadership capacity at a church when the senior pastor became uncontrollably jealous of the national attention that my ministry was receiving. He froze me out of leadership meetings and regular processes and made comments about me to other congregational leaders that were both untrue and unfair. Because he was not willing to admit to me that these things were happening and other people in the congregations were becoming increasingly upset by the odd behavior of their pastor, it seemed that the most honorable thing for me to do was to leave that body. Although the environment had become toxic, it was still a crushing blow for me and my family. Again, this is an extract from a quote from a person who says this is their latest example of what they considered church hurt. The person contends that in their effort to do ministry, that there's a common theme, and I hope you'll pick it up. I got one more example for you. Next slide. And we'll talk about this common theme in just a second. Now, here's another example. This person says, another instance stemmed from how a predominantly white, affluent congregation treated my Hispanic daughters. All of my daughters are adopted, and two of them are from a Latin American country. While my wife and I were welcomed, obviously because they were white, with open arms by the congregation, the distasteful treatment afforded to our little girls in their Sunday school classes by teachers and students alike made it impossible for us to stay there. Once again, the gap between what was preached and what was practiced made it unbearable for us to remain in our church home. I want you to know, first of all, that these were three examples. And the common theme in all of these is you have to go to the person. What was happening here? Think about it. If the focal lens had been turned to the individual, Matthew 18 is a wonderful example of what happens when we have an infraction. Think about the number of times that someone had given you an infraction and they never once came to you to talk about it, but instead they amplified it. Oh my goodness, and made it worse. The good book in Matthew 18 says, if you have an ought, go to them and them alone. Oh yes, it's something to be said about that model. This is going to be the premise for our theological basis for church hurt, because the Bible is not silent on confrontation and conflict, by the way. We know clearly that if in each one of these incidences, if they had only had enough wherewithal to go to the person, can you imagine what it's like to be coming to a place that you call home? All of these incidences, the person referred to the church as their church home. Think about it, my friend. What a displacement it is to go to the place that you call home only to be inflicted with a church. Let's go a little bit deeper because we have some more examples for you today. Good morning, Brother Thorpe James. Glad to have you with us this day as well. The next slide, please. I want to talk about for a moment. Let's put our weight on this. If you think about it, the causes of ecclesia exodus disease have been inflicting the Lord's people since the beginning of church history. I'm telling you right now, we got some wonderful resources for you today. Think about this. I want you to just put your mind on a Saturday morning devotion around this. If you think about it, yes, you may have a case of ecclesia exodus disease, but I got some very good news for you, that this has been afflicting the Lord's people since the beginning of church history. That bears one more time of repeating. 3 times I want you to consider this for a devotion on a Saturday morning. If you think about it, the causes of ecclesia exodus disease has been afflicting the Lord's people since the beginning of church history. Now, you say, well, why is that important? It's important because here's the thing. Do you not know in mental illness that they say that one of the first defaults is that the person's mind allows them to think that they're the only one who's ever had this level of complexity? And that's a bad and dangerous place, because the reality is you're not the first person to have had a divorce. Am I talking good to someone today? You're not the first person to have had an eviction and be placed and displaced from your house. You're not the first person to have had a repossession. Listen, I know these things are tough and they're kind of challenging to navigate through, but the goal here is for you to understand that the church hurt that you're encountering, that you're holding, that you're toting, you're not the first person to have ever encountered a church hurt. I want to talk good to somebody today, because that's liberating. Because what that means is this. Can I make the connection? It simply means that if they got through it, you can get through it. If they found a way to deal with it, there is hope for you also, because you can deal with it also. Yes, I'm telling you right now. So let's look at a couple of quick examples, and then we'll go a little bit further. in this process, while we're navigating through this, I want you to think about, who is it that's in your circle that has inflicted? Good morning, Sister Janie, all the way up there in the Maryland, Baltimore area. What a delight it is to have you with us as well. Think about it today. Who is it that's in your circle that's inflicted that pain, that disappointment, or either is engaging in unstable ethical and moral standards? Yes, today is about this concept called church hurt. And I wanted to let you know that you are not in this by yourself. And if we had an open field, are you ready for this? If we had an open field and we summons everyone who had ever encountered a disappointment, a pain, or some immorality or instability in morals and dealing with you, if we had all these people that come to one field, it would be a massive gathering, because people all over this world have encountered some level of church hurt. And I'm telling you right now, you're not in this by yourself. Now let's look at a couple of people. Some people are saying, well, how do you know about that, Williams? Well, I want to give you some examples. Next slide, please. Let's look at this. It's been around a long time. Jesus was sent to save the Jews, those people who were rejected, whose leaders rejected and conspired to orchestrate his murder in defiance of the spiritual laws and practices that they taught fellow Jews. Think about it. Here's the greatest example of all. Our Messiah, our Father, sets the example that when you don't fit the mold, who am I talking to on today? You're not a yes man. You're not a yes woman. Sometimes you have your own independent thinking. And my friend, when you demonstrate that you're not a part of the status quo, sometimes the immediate reaction from those persons who are dominant and controlling is that they tend to want to inflict some level of pain. It's right here in the first example. Think about it. There were people who were already on the scene before Jesus came. But here comes this non-compliant person who is not willing to be a part of the yes crowd. And I want to talk to somebody today that when you demonstrate that you have a mind of your own, you can be well assured that that's going to come with some level of resistance. Come here today, and I will tell you that you're not in this by yourself. Jesus was there. You do understand, example after example. We could take a whole year talking about the examples. But I want to share with you that this Jesus shares with us that he came to seek and to save those which were lost. Listen, I want to tell you, and you do know that they conspired and they orchestrated to kill him. But the question was, for what? It was because he was non-compliant, my friends. And when you make up in your mind that you are not a yes person, and that the good Lord gave you a mind and you do plan to use it, I want to help you today that you should be on the defense, because everybody is not going to celebrate your independent thinking. And I want to suggest to you as well that can come from many external forces. It can come from within the church. It can come from family. You'd be surprised at the number of families that don't have harmony because people aren't allowed to have their own independent thoughts. Listen, we can agree to disagree. You can take your position and I can take my position, but it doesn't mean that we have to hurt each other. Am I talking good to anybody on today? The fact that you can be an independent thinker and still have harmony. It is a wonderful principle in dealing with church hurt, that we all can come to this space with our own minds. And let me tell you something. I don't like a lot of yes men around me. As a matter of fact, I'm a leader and a pastor, and I'm okay with conflict. I'm okay with people saying, I don't see it that way. And I'm okay with people saying, I don't share like views. Wonderful. So then I say, make your case. And you know what? It's a wonderful place for us to have harmony, even though we don't agree. And we know that Jesus was the first big example of our series today. He goes and he starts healing. He goes and he starts teaching. Oh my goodness. I'm telling you right now that this is a big ticket item, that you are entitled to have your own place of thinking. No one, God bless you, Sister Cassandra. Always a delight to have you with us out of Winston-Salem. I'm telling you right now, what is the big takeaway? If you take nothing else from today, if you have the ability to think on your own and you're not so passive that a person can persuade you and manipulate you, you ought to celebrate the fact that you have some internal wherewithal that allows you to do your independent thing. Yes, because sometimes people are masterminds of manipulation. Can I talk real good right there? And it's not always the pastor, but it's other members within that same church home. I'm telling you right now, there are those who have what we call the meeting before the meeting. Yes, I'm going to talk good about it today. You'd be surprised at the number of people that they want you to see it their way. And when you don't see it their way, I'm going to go a little bit further. And when you don't vote their way, yes, I said it. Absolutely. This is a real talk series for grown folks. Amen. And can I tell you something? You don't get to tell me what my vote is. I'm an independent thinker. It's voting time, as a matter of fact, and I do hope you go out and participate in voting. But even in that privilege, you ought to be able to decipher for yourself who you want to cast your vote for. Jesus dealt with that same thing. Thank you, Sister Cassandra, for sharing that personal testimony. And I do agree that you can never settle into a church without really having your own personal positions. And I get it. We have Christian education. I totally get that. But even in the Christian education, we are all uniquely and fearfully made. So says the word of God. And so in that premise of being fearfully and wonderfully made, God gives us all the ability to have our own personal mindset. And so guess what? Jesus comes and he upsets this unethical, unstable, unmoral mindset that was being practiced. There were patterns. Hear me good when I say people can do the wrong thing so long until they think it's the right thing. Yes. And can I tell you something? Here's the challenge. From a child, most of us are challenged and encouraged to find a local church home. Most of us have been presented with that, and I'm of that school. I thank God I had mom and father who encouraged us to find a church home. And then when you find it, Lord have mercy, and then you get in there and then you start encountering church hurt. I want to tell you something. It is a big deal, but we're here to give you some practical guys. Don't sleep on this. Jesus, my first example, sets the tone for what can happen when you have a independent thinking personality. I want to talk to somebody today. Don't be that passive person. Don't be the one that people can go to and say, oh, I know I can get her to go along with it. No, absolutely not. No, I want you to be independent and self-sustaining thinker. That simply means that you have the ability to think for yourself. Yes, you may collaborate with people, but at the end of the day, the decision is yours. And if someone doesn't agree with that, then they ought to at least be mature enough to come and talk to you first, one-on-one. All right, let's go to my next example because we have several more for us to get to on today. Then we say, those Bible scholars, here's another letter. Paul, the great apostle. You say, Williams, why are you? Because I want you to understand church hurt has been around a long time. Paul's letters were written to churches that were distorting the principles provided by Jesus and consequently hurting many people through the misapplications of his truth and admonitions. Let me tell you something right now. It's been around a long time. And this is one that I usually use during a funeral. That Paul had went to the Corinthian church. Matter of fact, he had went there twice. And while there, he had talked to them about this term eschatology. That is simply to say that there is life after death. Lord have mercy. And Paul put his weight on trying to educate the Corinthians at that time that there is life after death. He told them in no uncertain terms that there was going to be a great transformation, that Christ would crack the sky. He goes in great detail on what life would be like after you left. He even talks about to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. Paul goes and puts his weight on trying to get them to understand that there is life after death. That's called eschatology. And then he gets word that there were those who were part of the church, who was joining the church, who was trying to dismantle and really trying to depict it or to pick it apart, if you will, and try to change the minds of those Corinthians. And Paul wrote them another letter and told them, I would not have you to be ignorant, my brethren, concerning those which sleep. Why am I saying this? Because even with a great missionary like Paul, he encountered church hurt with the very people that he had poured so much into. And yet he finds himself dealing with pain and disappointment. My friends, I want to talk to somebody today that you are not alone, and it's been around a long time. Now, the mindset is, how do we handle it? Well, I don't even want to get into the how do we handle it until I get a good support system around you to help you to understand that what you're dealing with, you're not alone in this. Church hurt has been around a long time. Can you imagine Paul traveling to the Asia Minor coast, going to all those different missionary stops? And we're going to find out a little bit later, even in this series here, that many times you do your due diligence, but guess what? None of us are exempt from church hurt. Jesus sets the example, and he says, you're going to be an independent thinker. You have to also know that the church hurt is a part of that formula. Yes, because there are those who are not going to take it sitting down. There it is. I said it, and I'll say it a second time. When you're an independent thinker, they don't take it sitting down. Paul found the same thing to be true. Listen, it was so unruly in the Corinthian church that he had to write and tell them that even to the ladies that he says to them, it was so much confusion that he gave them a model. Could you at least go home and ask your husband? This is what Paul was trying. He wasn't trying to tell women that they couldn't preach in the church. He was just simply trying to offer a model to defuse some of the frustration that was in the church. You would be well served to read Paul's letter to the Corinthians, because there was so much instability in their morals, instability in their characters, instability in their ideas. And so it became like commonplace for people to get church hurt. Who am I talking to? You go into church trying to serve God, go in there to try to get your praise on, and then you got folks in there trying to imply and inflict hurt to you. Yes, I want to tell you something. You are not alone, and you're not the first person to have encountered church hurt. Don't sleep on Paul. This man traveled all over Asia Minor trying to establish God's churches. And in the process, the apostle experienced church hurt from the very people he was trying to help. Absolutely. Let's go a little bit further, because we do have some more examples to talk about. Next slide, please. Well, here it is. John the Revelator. When you look at the 7 churches depicted in Revelations, Revelations 2 and 3, we've heard all about those 7 churches of Revelations. Oh, if you've never read about them, it's a wonderful study, because those churches depict, it's almost as if John had a peek into the future and saw what we would be dealing with today. When you look at those 7 churches of Revelations, what you will find is that the congregations did a poor job of handling Jesus' teaching. You say, why, Williams? Because 5 of the 7, 5, that's over half of the churches that John saw, they did a poor job of handling Jesus' teachings and also of handling God's people. It's right there in, you ought to read it, Revelations 2 and Revelations 3, the 7 churches. You would be well served, my friend, to read it, because what you will find, I don't have time to unpack that today. I'm only using that as an example that church hurt has been around a long time. And I want to talk to you today that the good news is, you ready? That if the 7 churches of Revelation could overcome the church hurt and the disappointments, I got good news for you today, that you too can overcome the hurt and the disappointment that has been inflicted into your life as well. Those people who have, for whatever the reasons are, handled you, God's people, the wrong way, I got good news for you. Just like those children of God, God allowed them to overcome. You can overcome today as well. Again, 5 out of the 7 churches in Revelations, they did a bad job, thumbs down, towards their handling of Jesus' teaching and the way they handled God's people. God was not pleased. And guess what? I want to tell you something. If you're being mishandled, God's not pleased with it either. But I got good news for you, that the church is still a place where God resides. And there's always hope. Listen, my time is about out. I got to go through 1 or 2 more examples. I'm going to ask for the next slide, please. Well, think about this one. Even the early church, this is bringing it on up close to our time now. Even the early church leaders were guilty of infighting and bitterness. Paul had a less than amicable parting of ways with John Mark and Barnabas, despite a successful initial missionary journey. Why is that important? Because when you look at Paul's descriptions in First Timothy and Second Timothy, you will find that Paul had a wonderful relationship with Barnabas and John Mark. You would be well served to read First and Second Timothy. It's in the text. But what you want to take away from that is, with all of that good success, they traveled Asia Minor, establishing missionary churches. They had a level of success. I'm talking good to someone today that you got involved and you experienced success. And then you say, this cannot be. Oh, yes, it can be. And many times it is to be, because what happens is that people sometimes they get distracted. Yes, there it is. I said it. Distracted in the church as well. Barnabas was, as we would say in the hood, Barnabas was Paul's ride or die. They had gone through great trials together. And then all of a sudden, Paul says that Barnabas has left me. It's in the text now. Read it, First and Second Timothy. And then he looks at John Mark and asks him, will you lead me to? I'm here today to talk to someone to tell you that it's not uncommon, and it's a very common theme. If you're going to do any real ministry, everybody's not going to be on the bandwagon with you. I stopped by to talk to somebody today to tell you that it's been around a long time. Paul, a missionary in his day, encountered church hurt way back then. And I want to tell you, if you're going to do God's work, you need to arm yourself likewise, because every day is not going to be sunshiny, and you're going to encounter some level of church hurt as well. Now, I got one more example. I'm going to ask you to give me the next slide, please. So what have we learned? Conflict and interpersonal pain are as old as humans. When you go back to the beginning of time, I can demonstrate to you from the very beginning that this thing called conflict and interpersonal pain are as old as we are as humans. Perhaps not surprisingly, such difficulties have been presented in the Christian church from its origin, and are likely to be a part of every human institution until the age of time. So what I'm saying to you is this, is that you cannot put a bubble around yourself if you're going to do and be a good Christian disciple. You're going to encounter some level of church hurt. You're going to encounter some level of interpersonal pain. It's been here. I've tried to demonstrate to you that it's been around a long time. And I want to suggest to you that the good news is that God is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. What that simply means to you is, if he provided a plan or a guide for our foreparents to get through it, you can get through it too. I feel good on this today, because somebody has been trying to figure out how to get through your church pain, your church hurt. Well, I want to tell you this as well. My next slide, please. Listen to this as I try to bring this to a close. The paradox, that is the tension in all of this, is the inconsistencies and harshnesses of our society often drive us towards the most tangible and widely promoted expressions of Christianity. That is simply to say that as we get these infractions, somebody's being harsh to us, they end up causing you to seek out something that you can put your hands on, which we call the church. Think about the number of people who got hurt and then said, I'm going to the church. Had a divorce, a bad marriage, and it was so bad until you had to find a place. And you say, you know what? Mama always told me to go to the church. And I went to the church. You went there because you were looking for this great oasis of perfection and goodness. But oh, when you got there, I feel good on a Saturday. I got to bring this to a close because I want to talk to somebody today that says, I got hurt in my family and my family wounded me so bad that the only place I felt like I could go was to the church. And when I got to the church, the place that I was hoping to find goodness and perfection, only to discover a place where I endured even more hurt. I'm talking good to somebody on a Saturday morning because here's the thing. I come to tell you, as shocking as it may sound, we know the church is a place where sinners are transformed into reasonable images of Christ himself. Think about it, my friend, as we close today. You got hurt, then you ran to the church, the place that you were hoping to find perfection and goodness. And then you get there because you're coming with this expectation that these group of people, they are striving to be in the image of Christ himself. But can I tell you what happens? Most of the times, that expectation is shattered once you begin to get involved in the church. I want to talk to you real good. It's okay as long as you're just going and coming. You're not involved in anything. You're not really, participating in anything. But it's when you make the decision to get involved. It begins to open the door for maturity, but it also opens the door for some shattered expectations. I want to close with this. After all, because some may not need to know, some might not know this, and I just wanted to say it today. After all, the notion is clear that when we come to church, what we find is this right here. I want to read it to you. The local body of believers is still a collection of sinners seeking a place where they can discover wisdom, truth, grace, healing, and love. My friend, no local church will ever be perfect as long as people are part of it. I want to close today by telling you that you're not alone, but many times what has happened is this pseudo image, that is this false image that if I can just run to the church, I can find perfection and goodness and love and happiness, truth and wisdom and healing. But all that's shattered when you get there and you discover that it's regular, ordinary people just like you. I want to give you one last slide today, and I want you to think about this. Next slide, please. Spiritual injury occurs in churches more often than we would like to admit. Yes, there it is right there. I want you to leave this space today with the understanding that this spiritual injury Who is it? I'll raise my hand, be the first one. I've had spiritual injury right in the church by the very people that I sought the love, the wisdom, the truth, the grace, and the healing. And the very people that I had the expectation of were the very ones that inflicted the spiritual injury on me. Am I talking good to anyone today? The reality is it's been around a long time. But the good news is there's also a model to help us. We're going to be diving deep into that. That's all that we have for today. But I want to tell you that don't give up on God, because your best self is just around the corner. You're one step from your best self. And even with the hurts, the disappointments, and the shattered expectations, we can still do ministry, because all of us have been given a gift. God has packaged that gift into all of us. And sometimes he has to repackage the gift to another congregation. And I'm all right with that. But what I want you to understand is don't give up and don't throw away the gift. Ooh, that's my parting words on a Saturday morning. Don't give up and don't throw away the gift, because I promise you, God will repackage it and then give that gift to someone else. I love you today. That's all the time I have. I done got excited, amen, because I've been there. I walked this path. I'm not telling you anything that I haven't done. You are looking at someone who has been gifted by God to overcome the church hurt and the disappointment. Stay tuned. We have quite a few more resources. We're going to be talking about some books for you to get, with some workbooks as well, to kind of help you to work through that process. Because when you get hurt, it's a process. And that's all I have for you today. I cannot wait to dive deeper into this process called the principles and of how to get past this church hurt. From the very beginning, we're talking about practical guide for healing and moving beyond church hurt. That's what I want to continue to diving deep into. And I'm going to ask you to do me a favor on next week as well. If you know someone who's given up, who's thrown in the towel, would you do me a favor and say, listen, there is a series going on how you can navigate. You can literally move past that place to the next best you that God wants you to be. Shall I pray with you today? Father, we thank you. We give you praise today. We give you honor because you are better to us than we are to ourselves. You continually look beyond our faults and you see our needs. We thank you that you're that kind of God, that even when we inflict hurt upon you, you don't give up on us, but you give us another chance to get ready and to get it right. I thank you on today. Bless that viewer who's made their mind up that they're going all the way with you and the devil's trying to stop them. I thank you now in Jesus' name. Amen. Listen, until next time, that's all the time I have for you today. I pray that you would go and remember as we leave, this is going to be our catchphrase. Don't throw away the gift because God is giving you a gift. And if you have to, he'll repackage it and place it somewhere else. But whatever you do, don't give up on the gift and don't throw it away. God bless you.